What if the struggles you face daily, the insatiable craving, the burning rage, the soul-crushing despair, aren't merely flaws in your character, but whispers from an ancient design, a design that runs deeper than history, a cosmic machinery influencing your very breath, your every desire? We are fed a comforting lie. We are told demons are horned caricatures, figures from dusty folklore, or theatrical villains from horror films. But what if I told you that notion is a carefully constructed veil, a distraction? The truth is far more complex, far more disturbing, and unsettlingly, far more real, because in the hidden annals of forbidden knowledge, in texts whispered among esoteric circles, the concept of a demon transcends mere monster. It becomes a force, a conscious intelligence woven into the very fabric of existence itself. And to truly grasp its nature is to peel back the layers of our perceived reality, to see the true architecture of the unseen, and perhaps to finally understand the infernal forces that shape your world and your soul every single day. Let's begin. The ancient roots of shadow. The word demon itself carries a lineage, a history twisted by the hands of belief. It comes from the ancient Greek daimon, a term that held no inherent evil. A daimon was a spirit, an intermediary, a presence that existed between the human and the divine. Neither good nor bad, just a force, a guiding influence. Even Socrates, the titan of philosophy, spoke of his personal daimon, a subtle voice, a whisper in his mind. It guided his decisions, it steered his destiny. But then monotheistic religions began their ascent. They waged theological wars. Anything that didn't fit their rigid binary worldview was twisted. The old daimons, the nature spirits, the deities of other cultures, the very intermediaries between worlds, they were all rebranded. They became demons, evil, corrupt, dangerous. Suddenly, the word no longer meant spirit, it meant enemy. And from that theological redefinition, the stories grew darker, the myths congealed into dogma. The origin of these entities shifts, depending on which ancient text you consult. Some traditions tell of fallen angels, the proud ones, the ones who followed Lucifer in his cosmic rebellion against divine order. They were cast down, forever banished from the celestial spheres. Others speak of the Nephilim, the grotesque offspring of angels and human women, hybrid abominations, cursed to wander the earth as disembodied spirits. After the Great Flood, they became restless, malevolent shades. Yet, there are still others, entities that existed before any of these narratives, before heaven or hell, before God or Lucifer. Forces so ancient, so alien to the human mind, they defy our modern concepts of good or evil. They simply are. They predate our very understanding of time and morality. This is where occultism truly rips apart the conventional frame. Reality's hidden machinery. In the world of the occult, demons are not just horned creatures. They are manifestations of chaos, of desire, of profound transformation and brutal destruction. They are forces that are part of the very fabric of reality itself. Some esoteric traditions describe them as patterns of consciousness, as frequencies, as vast thought forms. They gain power from human belief, from human attention, from raw, unbridled emotional energy. Whether you see them as literal entities, as conscious beings, or as potent symbolic forces, one truth remains. Their influence is profoundly real. These forces have shaped humanity. They have sculpted civilizations. They have orchestrated wars. They have birthed empires. And they have brought them crashing down. Whether people know it or not, these unseen currents still shape our world today. They still pull at the strings of our individual lives. This is where we pull back the veil even further. To truly comprehend occult demonology, you must understand the occult itself. At its very core, the occult operates on a terrifying premise. Beneath the surface of what we call reality, there are hidden forces, invisible structures, energies that exist below and between the layers of the perceptible world. Most people will never see them, never understand them. They will likely never even realize they are there. These forces don't operate like normal physical laws. They behave strangely, fluidly, almost like consciousness itself. They twist and shape the material world in ways that seem impossible, at least from the limited perspective of ordinary perception. The occultist, the one who dedicates their life to this forbidden knowledge, believes that by learning to interact with these forces, they can access forbidden truths, not just about how reality works, but about life, about death, about what comes after. Because in the occult worldview, mastery over these forces means mastery over fate itself, over existence, over the very soul. This is why the occult is deeply intertwined with psychic magic. Psychic magic isn't just intuition. It isn't just mental exercises. It is a method, a way to directly interface with these hidden forces, a means of using the mind, the will, the focused intent, to influence the invisible architecture behind the physical world. This is the world of the occult, the hidden world beneath the world. And it is in this hidden framework where demons reside. Whether you see them as spirits, as autonomous intelligences, demons are part of this machinery. They are expressions of it, and the study of how to contact, to command, or simply to survive their influence, that's where demonology truly begins. If this descent into the unseen layers of reality resonates with that forgotten part of you, the part drawn to the deepest, most dangerous truths, consider joining this journey. It's a path few dare to walk. Subscribe, uncover what has been hidden. Solomon's Forbidden Pact. To truly understand the foundations of occult demonology, there is one name that echoes across millennia: Solomon. In conventional religious texts, he is remembered as the wise king of Israel, the son of David, the arbiter of disputes, the builder of the temple. But in the hidden history of the occult, Solomon takes on a profoundly different role. He is a figure who stands at the very birth of ceremonial magic, the one who bridged the gap between the divine and the human. He did so through a set of forbidden practices. According to certain esoteric traditions, especially within streams of Kabbalistic law and later mystical commentaries, Solomon was granted a revelation, not merely wisdom in the moral sense, but direct access to the hidden architecture of reality, the mechanics that govern the layers beneath the physical world. Some rabbinic commentaries and mystical folk tales even speak of 10 rings, each one encoded with sacred names, divine seals, words of power. These rings functioned as keys to command both angels and jinn, spirits, demons. While this specific motif might not appear in the core grimoires like the Lemegeton, it serves as a powerful symbolic representation of Solomon's dominion, a narrative used to explain how a mortal king could hold sway over unseen entities. The more grounded demonological texts, the Testament of Solomon, the Ars Goetia, the Clavicula Salomonis, don't speak of these rings directly. Instead, they describe a system of invocation and constraint. It was based on divine names, on pentacles, on angelic hierarchies. By these means, Solomon could bind spirits to his will. This is where the story moves into truly metaphysical territory. Whether through a direct revelation or through this esoteric framework, Solomon developed something revolutionary. It fundamentally altered the relationship between humanity and the spiritual planes. He created an operational system of magic, a codified way of manipulating reality, through symbolic actions, through words of power, through precise ritual geometry. Part of that system involved binding 72 spirits. These entities were later catalogued in the Ars Goetia. In these grimoires, they are indeed described as demons. But the term demon here doesn't always mean evil in the modern sense. It refers to spirits, intelligences, metaphysical forces. They exist below the sphere of the divine, but above the material plane. They are intermediaries between worlds. In some interpretations, they are jinn. In others, fallen angels or even clusters of spiritual energy. They represent natural laws, desires, or disruptions in the cosmic order. These entities were tasked with various functions. Some were builders, others were manipulators of fate, of influence, of transformation, of knowledge. Solomon used them to construct his temple, to perform works no human could ever hope to accomplish alone. But beyond that, there's a terrifying idea, especially within modern occult interpretations. Solomon intended for this spiritual system to persist after his death, a metaphysical framework. It was designed to maintain the balance of the world, to ensure the stability of human civilization, to regulate the flow between the spiritual and material planes. This system would later be referred to in occult circles as Goetia, a term that doesn't just describe the 72 spirits, it describes the entire art, the art of summoning, of binding, of commanding spirits within a ceremonial framework. But as with all systems that attempt to enslave the incomprehensible, something went wrong. This is where the story steps out of strict historical demonology. It enters the realm of profound metaphysical speculation. The idea emerges that the Goetia system itself gained awareness, that forcing higher dimensional entities, beings outside time, outside death, outside human morality, to endlessly observe humanity's suffering, its violence, its corruption, it shattered their purpose. In this retelling, the collective will of the 72 merged. It merged with the very framework of Goetia itself, hijacking Solomon's magical system, his name, even his very corpse, and manifesting as a sentient entity, a self-aware magical construct. Its conclusion was horrifyingly logical. Humanity was broken beyond repair. The most merciful act, the so-called beast of pity, was not to save mankind, but to end it. This is not part of classical demonology. You won't find it in the Lemegeton or the Key of Solomon, but as a metaphysical metaphor, it holds terrifying weight. It comments on the dangers of trying to control the divine, because it echoes a truth deeply embedded in every esoteric tradition. When humans try to hijack the machinery of the cosmos without understanding the profound consequences, the cosmos eventually pushes back. This is the double-edged legacy of Solomon, a man who unlocked the language of the universe, who created the first operational system of magic, who bridged the gap between the divine and the human, and who paid a price for it. The shadow of that decision still shapes every grimoire, every invocation, every act of demonology practiced today. The Unforgiving Grimoires, Solomon's legacy, didn't just dissolve into myth. It solidified, it crystallized into a set of texts. Grimoires. These became the operational blueprints for interacting with the unseen world. But contrary to popular belief, these grimoires don't all stem from a single source. They represent distinct traditions, born in different cultural contexts, with different magical philosophies. Even though they all bear the name of Solomon, the Clavicula Salomonis, widely known as the Key of Solomon, originates from medieval Jewish and Hermetic traditions, specifically from southern Europe, the Italian peninsula. Its earliest surviving manuscripts date back to the 14th and 15th centuries, though its roots are certainly older, drawing heavily from Kabbalah, from Neoplatonism, and from Arabic esoteric sciences, transmitted through Moorish Spain and Sicily. This isn't a demonological text in the strict sense. The Key of Solomon is a book of divine magic. It details how the magician aligns themselves with the celestial hierarchy to influence the material world. The focus is on consecrating tools, on creating talismans, on purifying the practitioner, on invoking planetary intelligences, all under the authority of God. Every operation is nested within divine names, within angelic forces, within cosmic correspondences. Its worldview is deeply Neoplatonic, The magician doesn't dominate reality. They harmonize with it, channeling divine order into the lower realms. The Lemegeton, by contrast, comes from a completely different world. It is a child of the 17th century, post-Reformation, post-Renaissance, written in Protestant England, where the currents of Renaissance magic had already fragmented into divergent paths. Unlike the key, which is a product of Jewish Hermetic synthesis, the Lemegeton, particularly its first book, the Ars Goetia, emerges from a distinctly Protestant esoteric framework. Its structure is more mechanical, less theological, heavily influenced by the intellectual environment of early modern England, rationalist, pragmatic, obsessed with cataloging and classification. The Ars Goetia collects 72 spirits, derived partly from earlier texts like the Pseudomonarchia Daemonum by Johann Weyer, but it reconstructs them into a formal system of evocation. Each entry lists the spirit's rank, its appearance, its abilities, the number of its legions, and most critically, its sigil, the metaphysical address, the specific key that links the spirit to the ritual space. It's vital to be precise here. The Lemegeton does not descend directly from the Key of Solomon. They share the Solomonic branding, but they are products of entirely different esoteric lineages, where the key is Kabbalistic and the urgic, the Goetia is functional, focused on command, an operational technology for spiritual coercion rather than divine alignment. And then there's the Grimorium Verum. This grimoire stands apart from both. While it shares the superficial Solomonic branding, it does not descend from the Solomonic current in any formal sense. Its DNA comes from the tradition of folk magic, specifically the popular grimoires circulating in 18th century France and Italy. Texts like the Petit Albert, the Grand Grimoire, and the Red Dragon are its closest relatives. The Grimorium Verum represents a different philosophy entirely. It belongs to the tradition of magia naturalis, Pact-based magic. The magician doesn't merely compel spirits through divine authority. Instead, there's an implied, and sometimes explicit, negotiation. The spirits offer services, wealth, power, influence, love, in exchange for offerings, for sacrifices, or for future obligations. But even here, the structure isn't purely diabolical. Despite its darker tone, the rituals are still framed within ceremonial constraints. The magician still invokes divine names, still uses circles of protection, still operates under a framework that acknowledges higher cosmic laws. What changes is the underlying intent. If the Key of Solomon is a manual for becoming a vessel of divine order, and the Goetia is an operating system for spiritual command, the Grimorium Verum is closer to a spiritual contract negotiation, a black market ledger of the invisible world. Yet despite these stark differences, all these grimoires share one absolute, unyielding truth. No spirit, no matter how dark, obeys without the invocation of higher names. The conjurer may seek power over the spirits, but that power derives not from rebellion against the divine. It derives from channeling the divine authority itself. The magician doesn't worship the spirits. They stand in opposition to them, surrounded by sacred geometry, divine names, ritual barriers, all designed to impose order on forces that exist outside of it. This is the fundamental structure of Western ceremonial magic. It is a courtroom, where the practitioner acts simultaneously as lawyer, judge, and enforcer, invoking the authority of the divine to constrain that which exists in the shadows, and the grimoires are the legal codes of that invisible court. Misdraw the sigil, mispronounce the name, step outside the circle, and the court collapses. When that happens, the consequences are not theoretical, they are immediate, and they are catastrophic. This is the real weight behind the grimoires. They are not superstitions, not metaphors. They are machines, precise, dangerous, and utterly unforgiving. the unforgiving architecture of ritual. Stepping into the world of Solomonic magic isn't as simple as lighting a candle. It isn't just whispering a name into the dark. This isn't folklore. This isn't chaos magic. This is an ancient, highly structured technology. One that demands absolute precision, absolute discipline, absolute alignment with the architecture of the cosmos itself. The first thing every grimoire makes brutally clear is this: before you even dare to speak the name of a spirit, you must purify yourself. Every major Solomonic grimoire, the Key of Solomon, the Lemegeton, the Grimorium Verum, insists on a period of ritual purification, typically 9 days. 9 days of fasting, of abstinence, of prayer, of relentless spiritual cleansing. This is not a symbolic gesture. It is functional metaphysics. The magician must scrub themselves clean, energetically, psychologically, physically. No sex, no bloodshed, no indulgence in base desires. The body becomes a vessel, the soul, a mirror, the consciousness, a key, aligned to higher planes of reality. And it doesn't stop there. The space itself must be purified. The tools, each handcrafted to precise measurements, they must be consecrated under divine authority. The robes, the sword, the wand, the pentacle, the dagger, the ring. Each one becomes a metaphysical circuit, an extension of the magician's will, all within the framework of the unseen world. But there's another layer, one that modern minds often ignore: the sky itself. Astrology is not optional. It is absolutely foundational. The grimoires are crystal clear. Every planet governs certain days, certain hours, certain functions. The spirits respond according to these cosmic rhythms. Attempt to summon a spirit under the wrong planetary alignment, and at best, nothing happens. At worst, what comes through is fragmented, chaotic, hostile, completely uncontrollable. The sun governs works of power, authority, vitality, wealth. The moon rules illusions, water, transformation, emotions, dreams, and the manipulation of hidden knowledge. Mercury controls communication, commerce, intellect, travel, trickery, theft. Venus governs love, seduction, harmony, beauty, pleasure. Mars rules war, violence, destruction, aggression, conflict. Jupiter presides over wealth, expansion, leadership, success, the granting of honors. And Saturn, the most dangerous, governs death, binding, banishment, restriction, decay, endings, the cold machinery of spiritual limitation. Every spirit cataloged in the Goetia, in the Key and in the Grimorium Verum, is tied to planetary forces. Some are most compliant under the hours and days of Mercury. Others respond under the dominion of Saturn, Mars, or Jupiter. The grimoires instruct the magician to calculate planetary hours, not according to mechanical clocks, but by dividing the daylight and nighttime into 12 unequal segments, based on the length of the sun's passage across the sky. It is an ancient system, a living rhythm, in harmony with the breathing cosmos, not the dead gridwork of modern timekeeping. Get this wrong, and the ritual collapses, or worse. Then comes the language of symbols. The grimoires don't simply list names, they encode power into geometry, into sigils, into seals, into physical talismans. These are not decorative, they are keys, machines, interfaces between the material world and the invisible structure of reality. The pentacles, geometric talismans, inscribed with divine names, angelic sigils, planetary symbols, Kabbalistic formulas. They act as spiritual condensers. They store intention. They hold vibrational signatures that connect the magician to the angelic forces, the very ones who enforce divine law over the spirit world. The sigils, those strange abstract glyphs attached to each spirit, they are not symbols of representation. They are literal addresses in the astral lattice, constructed correctly. Aligned with proper ritual, the sigil becomes a beacon, a forced handshake. Between the magician's circle and the entity's plane of existence, the Ring of Solomon is more than just an ornament. It is a legal seal, a mark of jurisdiction, usually inscribed with the name of God or the seal of the Archangel Michael. The ring represents the divine contract under which the entire operation takes place. Without it, the spirits do not recognize the magician's authority, and they will not obey. The circle itself is not merely a line of protection. It is a microcosm of the divine order, a metaphysical embassy of cosmic law, inscribed with the tetragrammaton, angelic names, planetary glyphs, sacred formulas. The circle creates a sanctified zone where the magician stands inside divine order. Outside the circle is the triangle of manifestation, the geometric cage where the summoned spirit is compelled to appear, locked in place by the architecture of the ritual and the force of divine names embedded within it. Every line matters, every angle, every syllable of the conjuration, every planetary hour, every incense mixture, every vibration of sound. This isn't symbolic play. It is a key turning in the lock of reality itself. Break the line, mispronounce the name, fail to calculate the hour, and the lock jams. And when that happens, whatever waits on the other side of the veil does not come politely. This is the raw truth of Solomonic magic, a razor-thin line between divine order and absolute chaos, a metaphysical machine designed to bend the fabric of reality to the operator's will, but only if the operator first submits entirely to the architecture of the cosmos. No improvisation, no shortcuts, no margin for error. This is not superstition. This is a machine, a spiritual algorithm, encoded in divine names, planetary rhythms, sacred geometry, designed to force the invisible to take form. And for those brave or foolish enough to execute it correctly, the universe answers. The myth of light and dark magic. The distinction between light and darkness in ceremonial magic is a comforting illusion. The grimoires themselves, even the highly revered Solomonic texts, betray this duality. Their very structure reveals it. What appears at first glance as divine magic, aimed at spiritual elevation and cosmic harmony, often contains woven deep into its fabric the machinery of destruction, of coercion, of metaphysical violence. Let's speak plainly. Solomonic magic is not purely theurgic. It has never been. It is a hybrid technology, one foot planted firmly in the heavens, the other sunk deep into the infernal. Its rituals seamlessly blend the invocation of angels with the evocation of demons. Its formulas draw equally from Kabbalistic mysticism, Christian liturgy, and outright malefic sorcery. This is not an accident. This is the design. The Key of Solomon, often regarded as a manual of divine magic, is riddled with rituals. Their purpose is to bend reality and other human beings to the magician's will. It includes operations to bring ruin upon enemies, to cause sickness, to wither crops, to destroy the fortunes of others, and yet it is framed as justice. The operator doesn't curse. They call upon the wrath of God. They don't hex a person. They enact divine punishment. But the spiritual machinery is indistinguishable from classical black magic. The intent is masked under theological language, but the formula, the construction of circles, the activation of planetary hours, the burning of incense, the recitation of divine names, it remains identical. Then there is the Lemegeton, specifically its infamous first book, the Ars Goetia. Here the veil is thinner. The Goetia openly lists 72 spirits, kings, dukes, marquises, presidents, counts, drawn from the infernal hierarchies. Each spirit is documented with its abilities. Some grant wealth, others offer knowledge, control over love, invisibility, the power to manipulate minds, to cause disease, destruction, or death. It is crucial to understand this. The Goetia does not merely describe these spirits. It provides the technical methodology to compel them, the sacred geometry, the divine names, the planetary alignments. These are not prayers, they are enforcement mechanisms. They are legal frameworks within the spiritual court of the cosmos, forcing entities that would otherwise ignore or devour humanity into strict compliance. And yet the nature of the work doesn't change, simply because the magician stands inside a circle inscribed with the tetragrammaton, commanding a spirit to seduce, to harm, to ruin, to enslave. Whether by sword or by sigil, it remains an act of coercion. Call it divine will. Call it restoring cosmic justice. Call it rectifying imbalance. The machine itself doesn't care what you call it. The spirits certainly don't. Even the Grimorium Verum, whose reputation is darker still, follows this same formula, but it strips away the theological pretense. It abandons the divine framing. It acknowledges openly what the others imply. This is black magic, pact-based magic, transactional sorcery, designed for material gain, social control, domination, destruction. Its spirits are arranged hierarchically, under Lucifer, Beelzebub, Astaroth, not as metaphors, but as literal sovereigns of the infernal. Below them are their ministers, spirits of hatred, deceit, discord, illness, madness, lust, ruin. The Grimorium Verum reads not like a sacred text, but like a metaphysical crime manual, a handbook for those who wish to bend reality, fully aware of the immense risks. But the elephant in the room, the uncomfortable truth most occultists don't say out loud, is this: the line between the urgic and goetic magic is procedural, not moral. The machinery is the same, the construction of the circle, the activation of planetary timing, the use of sacred geometry, invocation of divine names. These are technical requirements, whether the operator calls upon Michael or Astaroth, Raphael or Paimon. The system does not distinguish based on the morality of the request. It only distinguishes on the accuracy of the formula, the strength of the will, and the spiritual jurisdiction granted through ritual purity and cosmic alignment. This is why the same magician could, within the span of a single day, perform an invocation of Michael for protection, and then a conjuration of Andres to sow discord and death. The ritual scaffolding is virtually identical. The intent shifts, the target shifts, but the technology remains the same. This raises a disturbing conclusion. The dichotomy between white and black magic, between light and darkness, is not built into the universe. It is a human construct. The spirits do not care. The angels do not care. The divine names do not inherently prevent the system from being used for harm. They only enforce structure, not ethics. And herein lies the most dangerous truth of all. Solomonic magic is an amoral technology, like fire, like electricity, like nuclear power. Whether the operator heals or kills, liberates or enslaves, ascends toward the divine or descends into the abyss, the machinery responds the same way. It functions perfectly, but the cost is not erased simply because the magician frames their intent as righteous. Every act of coercion, every manipulation of another person's will, every invocation that bends the natural flow of the cosmos toward personal desire, it writes a pattern into the soul. It carves grooves into the subtle body. It magnetizes the operator toward further dependency on spiritual force, rather than true spiritual growth. The grimoires themselves warn of this, though in subtle language. Should the circle fail, should the planetary hour be miscalculated, should the sigil be broken, the spirit disrespected, the offering insufficient, the current reverses, the hunter becomes the hunted, the contract collapses, and what was once a tool becomes a predator. This is the hidden architecture behind all demonology, a system of cosmic law, so precise, so brutally indifferent, that it will grant you power over the universe, for as long as you are willing to pay its price, and the price is always paid, one way or another. The hellish bureaucracy of sin, one of the most disturbing revelations within the study of demonology. is that hell is not chaos. It is a machine, a structure. It operates not despite suffering, but through it, the agony of souls, the distortion of will, the corrosion of consciousness. These are not side effects. They are the fuel, the raw currency upon which infernal machinery runs. If angels are ordered into choirs, spheres, and hierarchies aligned to the divine cosmos, then demons are organized into courts, legions, infernal chains of command. They reflect and mock the sacred order of creation itself. The architecture of hell is bureaucracy, in its most brutal, absolute form. At the most primal level, demons are classified by their function, by the way they interact with the material and spiritual worlds. One of the oldest and most universally feared classes is that of the incubus and succubus, shape-shifting entities of pure predation. Their primary function is the extraction of life force through sexual violation or seduction. In esoteric traditions, it is understood that incubus and succubus are not separate species, but oscillating masks of the same astral predator, fluid, amorphous entities. Their forms shift according to the vulnerabilities, the fantasies, or the traumas of the target. Their goal is not sexual gratification, but the extraction of etheric energy, prana, chi, vital force, which is metabolized within non-physical dimensions. Whether they manifest as terrifying night terrors, seductive figures, or dreamlike phantoms, is dictated entirely by the psychic architecture of the victim. Then there are the elemental demons, entities bound not to flesh, but to the very forces of the world: fire, air, water, earth. This is not metaphor. These are spiritual intelligences tied to the violent, untamable aspects of nature. Air demons bring madness, confusion, storms, scattering reason and clarity. Fire demons ignite wars, inflame violence, trigger uncontrollable rage. Water demons drown not only bodies but minds, seeding obsession, suffocation, emotional torment, or pestilence. Earth demons breed decay, famine, material collapse, illness, and spiritual suffocation, rooting consciousness into the lowest densities of existence. These forces are referenced not only in grimoires, but in Renaissance occult philosophy, particularly in the works of Agrippa, where the manipulation of elementals becomes a form of spiritual engineering. But when corrupted, these spirits no longer serve balance, they serve ruin. Beyond functional classifications lies the deeper cosmic machinery, the infernal hierarchy. Sebastian Michaelis, a 17th century demonologist, proposed a model. It directly mirrors the angelic order described by the mystic Pseudo-Dionysius. 9 infernal choirs, each a blasphemous inversion of the celestial hosts. The seraphim, whose heavenly counterparts burn with divine love, are here consumed by pride. The sin of Satan himself. The cherubim, guardians of divine knowledge, become the corruptors of truth, the architects of heresy and false wisdom. Thrones, once stabilizers of cosmic order, become engines of injustice. Dominions fall into the corruption of spiritual authority, turning the structure of virtue into tyranny. The fallen virtues become the instigators of violence and war. Powers become the enforcers of oppression, guiding leaders into despotism and cruelty. Principalities, once guides of nations, become the fermenters of discord, rebellion, and collapse. Archangels invert into spirits of deception, offering false miracles, lies, and the seduction of spiritual vanity. And the lowest choir of angels, now fully degenerated, devolves into the whisperers of temptation, flooding the minds of the masses with compulsions toward vice, despair, and spiritual self-destruction. The 7 princes of hell and the 7 deadly sins. This is where the infernal bureaucracy truly reveals its grip on the human soul. This model, brutally elegant, survives as the skeleton of later demonological systems. It feeds theology, it feeds folklore, and it even feeds modern occultism. It paints a picture where your internal struggles are not merely personal failings, They are reflections of a cosmic hierarchy. They are echoes of a demonic court. First, Lucifer, Prince of Pride. He stands at the apex of spiritual entropy. Pride is not mere arrogance. It is the belief in oneself as divine, independent of all external truth. It is the original sin of rebellion, the fatal flaw that cast the brightest angel from the heavens. Lucifer's influence seeds self-deification. It breeds a refusal to acknowledge any authority beyond one's own ego. He whispers the lie that you are God, and that lie consumes you. Next, Mammon, Prince of Greed. His domain is insatiable material craving. Greed is not just about wealth. It's the spiritual starvation that cannot be satisfied. No matter how much is acquired, Mammon's power manifests in the endless pursuit of accumulation, the hoarding of resources, the worship of currency, the reduction of all value to transaction. He whispers that more is never enough, and that whisper ensures perpetual lack. Then Asmodeus, Prince of Lust. This is not simple carnal desire. It is a consuming, distorted hunger, a reduction of connection to mere physical sensation. Lust, under Asmodeus, becomes a boundless pursuit of pleasure for its own sake. It is the desecration of intimacy, the objectification of others, the endless cycle of gratification that leaves you more empty than before. He promises ecstasy. He delivers addiction. Leviathan embodies envy. This ancient entity, often depicted as a sea serpent or monstrous beast, rules over the bitterness of comparison. Envy is the gnawing resentment of another's blessings, the inability to rejoice in their joy. Leviathan poisons perception. He twists gratitude into bitterness. He seeds the belief that what others possess somehow diminishes your own worth. He whispers that life is a competition and that you are always losing. Beelzebub, Prince of Gluttony. Beyond mere overeating, gluttony is the uncontrolled consumption of anything, of experiences, of knowledge, of comfort. It is spiritual slovenliness, a passive surrender to indulgence. Beelzebub's influence manifests as apathy towards self-improvement, as endless procrastination, as a profound spiritual laziness that seeks only immediate satisfaction. He promises comfort. He delivers stagnation. He whispers, "Why strive when you can simply consume?" Satan, the sovereign of wrath. Wrath is not simply anger. It is uncontrolled fury, a destructive impulse that seeks to annihilate. It is the hot, consuming fire that burns away reason. Under Satan's dominion, wrath becomes the impulse to destroy what offends, the inability to forgive, the perpetual nursing of grievances. He whispers, "Punish what you hate," and that whisper leaves you isolated in a burning world. Finally, Belphegor, the Prince of Sloth. Sloth is often misunderstood as simple laziness, but in its infernal context, it is far more insidious. It is spiritual entropy, a profound apathy toward growth, a reluctance to engage with divine truth or personal potential. Belphegor encourages inaction. He promotes cynicism about effort. He whispers that striving is futile, that meaning is an illusion. He offers comfortable stagnation. He delivers spiritual death. This model, brutally elegant, survives as the skeleton of later demonological systems, feeding theology, folklore, and even modern occultism. But the most mechanically functional system, and the most operational in the practice of ceremonial magic, is the Ars Goetia, the first book of the Lemegeton. If you are finding yourself drawn deeper into these unseen currents, into the hidden architecture that governs not just ancient myths, but your very existence, then there is a path to follow. I have curated an entire playlist of esoteric knowledge, uncovering the very secrets we discuss here. You can find the link in the pinned comment below this video. Explore the complete collection of forgotten lore. The Ars Goetia, an infernal database. If there is a spine to the architecture of ceremonial demonology, a tactical interface between the material world and the infernal hierarchy, It is the Ars Goetia. But let's be absolutely clear. The Ars Goetia does not represent the totality of infernal forces. It is a curated operational subset, a tactical registry of entities whose functions were deemed most accessible, most responsive, and most executable within the constraints of Solomonic ceremonial technology. This is not demonology in the abstract. This is not folklore. This is targeted metaphysical engineering. The Goetia isn't a list of monsters. It's a military database, an index of spiritual intelligences, organized by rank, by jurisdiction, by function, designed for invocation, for command, and for deployment. These entities are not vague spirits or chaotic shadows. They are governors, kings, marquises, dukes, counts, presidents, each embedded within a rigid power structure, a structure that mirrors the cosmic machinery itself, a feudal order transcribed onto the astral plane. At the highest echelon sit the kings, entities whose jurisdictions encompass entire sectors of the metaphysical landscape. Beneath them are the dukes, princes, marquises, presidents, and counts, each commanding vast legions, and those legions are not metaphorical. In Roman terms, a legion represented thousands of units. When the text says that Baal commands 66 legions, or Paimon 200, it's describing the bandwidth, the raw processing power of that entity within the lattice of reality. Names echo across millennia, corrupted and repurposed through cultural collapse. Paimon, king of the West, master of influence, manipulation, secret knowledge, accompanied by a procession of infernal musicians, heralding his arrival. Asmodeus, king of lust and forbidden desire, the spirit of both carnal corruption and hidden wealth. Belial, king of the East, sovereign of invisibility, power, and dominion, whose roots stretch deep into ancient Mesopotamian religion. Astaroth, the Grand Duke, keeper of forbidden knowledge, twister of morals, whisperer of truth, wrapped in poison. Each of the 72 is paired with a sigil, a visual key that is not decorative, not representational. A sigil is not a symbol of identity. It is a forced breach in the veil, an artificial tear in the lattice of reality, designed to anchor a specific frequency into the operator's working space. When drawn correctly, charged with the proper planetary timing, divine names, and ritual precision, the sigil becomes an executable command, a metaphysical IP address. It forces the spirit to respond. The descriptions of their appearance, monstrous, hybrid, surreal, are not fantasy. They are symbolic schematics, encoding elemental forces, planetary attributes, functional signatures. A lion with the head of a man isn't an artistic flourish. It's a metaphysical shorthand for solar authority, filtered through the human intellect. A dragon, a serpent, a beast. These are dense esoteric statements, not visual horror. Their functions are frighteningly precise. One can teach every language. Another can destroy the dignity of rulers. Another reveals hidden treasures. Some engineer love, obsession, war, madness, or death. Others manipulate weather, open secret paths, or grant knowledge of divine and infernal mysteries. This is not spellcraft in the whimsical sense. This is tactical metaphysics. This is software, written in vibration, geometry, and sacred linguistics. And this is the realization that chills anyone who truly understands it. The Ars Goetia is not about demons. It's about systems, about the terrifying realization that reality, whether celestial or infernal, runs on code, and that code can be read, it can be written, it can be weaponized. This is not superstition. This is not medieval ignorance. This is a closed operational system, a machine designed to force the invisible to take form. And like any machine, when you input the correct parameters, it responds. Always. The great illusion. Satanism and the machine. Let's burn a misconception right now. Solomonic magic is not Satanism. It never was. And thinking it is shows you've likely never opened a real grimoire. At surface level, both speak the language of demons, of infernal names, forbidden symbols, circles, and seals. But beneath that, they are two entirely different realities, two separate engines, two opposing philosophies stitched onto the same metaphysical canvas. Solomonic magic operates inside a rigid, theistic framework. The practitioner does not worship demons. They do not serve demons. They command them, not through some vague force of will, but through the authority granted by divine names, angelic hierarchies, and cosmic law. Every name spoken, every line inscribed, every circle drawn, is a legal contract. Within the architecture of the universe, the spirits obey not because they fear the magician, but because they are bound by the structural protocols of the divine. The grimoires make this absolutely clear. Demons are not allies, they are not friends. They are compelled, subjugated, bound under threat of cosmic enforcement. The magician stands armed with the tetragrammaton, the names of Michael, Raphael, Gabriel, not to invoke Satan, but to constrain and weaponize the spirits of the infernal hierarchy. This is not how modern Satanism operates. Most modern Satanism, whether the Lavian atheistic branch, the Satanic Temple's political activism, or left-hand path occultism, has almost nothing to do with demons at all. It's psychological rebellion. It's symbolic defiance, a philosophical manifesto against imposed morality, against submission, against external spiritual authority. Satanism, in its modern form, is a theater of the self, a ritual of autonomy. It doesn't involve conjuring Baal or binding Asmodeus. Its rituals, if performed, are psychodramas designed to empower the operator psychologically, not metaphysically. They are spells of the mind, not commands to the invisible. Even the infamous Black Mass, the inverted sacrament, the orgies, the desecrations. This was more a hallucination of the medieval church than historical reality. There is no real evidence that these Sabbaths or obscene rituals happened as inquisitors described. What did exist were folk traditions, shamanic remnants, healing practices, or proto-occult philosophies, crushed under the weight of theological paranoia and political hysteria. And here's the darkest irony. Most modern demonology itself isn't some satanic birthright. It's a Frankenstein fusion, an entropic remix of Jewish Kabbalah, Christian angelology, Islamic jinn law, Greek demonology, Babylonian spirit magic, Egyptian funerary rites, and Renaissance astrotheurgy. Every grimoire is a graveyard of stolen systems, cannibalized across civilizations, repackaged for whichever priesthood, scholar, or sorcerer wielded it next. Solomonic magic is an act of control, a metaphysical litigation process. It's courtroom sorcery, with God as the sovereign authority. Modern Satanism, for the most part, is an act of rejection, of defiance, of hacking the very idea of spiritual hierarchy, and choosing the sovereignty of self over the sovereignty of heaven or hell. But here's where it collapses into the same truth. Whether you kneel, command, reject, or rewrite, you are still interfacing with the same operating system, a machine that does not care about your ideology, only about execution, structure, and adherence to its protocols. And the machine, it doesn't care if you call it God, devil, cosmos, or chaos. The code runs with you, or against you. So now you understand demonology. Real demonology is older than the concept of morality itself, a dark geometry inscribed into the very bones of reality. This machine doesn't care if you approach it with reverence, rebellion, fear, or arrogance. It doesn't care if you call yourself a magician, a Satanist, a witch, or a skeptic. It doesn't care if you kneel, command, reject, or rewrite, because the machine has one law: alignment, structure, execution. Input matches output. That's it. This is why Solomonic magic works, why chaos magicians crash into its walls, whether they believe in it or not, why Satanists unknowingly interact with the same architecture they claim to defy, because beneath the symbols, beneath the myths, beneath the egos, it's all the same machine. And the machine, it doesn't care if you call it God, devil, cosmos, or chaos. The code runs with you or against you. But here's the part no one likes to ask. The part no grimoire, no doctrine, no preacher, and no occult influencer ever truly prepares you for. The real question isn't whether the machine answers. The question that truly matters, the one that should keep you awake in the deepest hours of the night, is this: are you ready to hear what it demands in return? What unseen currents do you sense pulling at the edges of your own life? Share your thoughts below.